welcome to the Dr. DC podcast. My name is Colin, and with me is Dr. DC himself.
Hello.
On this podcast, we will be exploring the DC universe through the things that we find weird, confusing, frustrating, or otherwise difficult to grasp. Ordinarily, our topic would be based on a question sent to us, usually through Twitter or the powers of the internet. But since this is the very first episode, I want to start with a very interesting question of my own. How come everyone keeps getting bitten by things that give them superpowers?
I think you're thinking of Spider-Man. That's a Marvel character. You said my name. You know that I'm Dr. DC. So I think maybe a better way to phrase the question.
I think that just about does it. If you have a burning question.
All right. I'll answer the question. I'll get off my high horse for a little bit. So yeah, how do people get superpowers? I guess is really the question, right? Yeah, I mean, there are a ton of different types of powers in DC Comics. There's like magic powers, and there's powers that come from having like an alien lineage, like you just are born with different things.
And then there's money powers.
There are money powers, Batman, Green Arrow, etc. But there are lots of humans that get superpowers, and they're usually through like freak accidents. Like you get caught in like an electrical storm, and all of a sudden you have electricity powers or things like that.
That sounds like a normal place to hang out.
Well, yeah. And I mean, it happens a lot. They're like very conveniently that whatever the accident was gives you a appropriate like related superpower.
Is there any one of these superheroes whose parents didn't teach them common sense? I feel like most of them that's the case.
Well, I mean, like,
Batman's excluded. He didn't have parents, I think.
Yeah, no, he did for the first 8 years, and then
also terrified of alleys.
Yes, yeah, that's right. Well, what I can tell you is that about in the 80s, people started asking this question, like, how come people are getting superpowers like related to terrible accidents in their lives? And the answer that they came up with is called the metagene. Basically, the idea that like there are people that have a slightly different genetic mutation in them, and it allows them to rapidly adapt to like a traumatic situation. So, for example, if you have a metagene and then you get electrocuted, that gene will save your life by allowing you to develop electricity-based superpowers. In the case of like Livewire.
I feel like what happens is that they're actually in comas dreaming about how cool they are.
I mean, that's super dark. You're going to a super dark place already.
What happens when you get electrocuted in an electrical storm?
Okay, well, there's a specific example of this. Very popular, Barry Allen, The Flash. He's on TV right now. They just finished season 3. This is a superhero a lot of people know. He's the fastest man alive.
Yeah, no, but real people, though.
That's not what we're talking about here. This is all about superheroes. Yeah. Did you not know that?
I'm just looking at my paperwork now. Oh, yeah, no, there it is. Superheroes.
Right, so I'm going to get back to it. Yeah, so Barry Allen, he's a crime lab technician, and a lightning bolt strikes him, and he gets doused in some chemicals, and he becomes the fastest man alive. So Barry is a metahuman. He has the metagene in him, and he also is like he's granted access to a thing called the Speed Force. That's like a whole another episode, though.
It seems like he would have had way more opportunities to develop some kind of superhero power in that lab of his, rather than lightning strikes.
The lightning's pretty crucial. I mean, without getting too far into it, because it's really like its own whole crazy thing.
What about training? Or, he could have tried harder, and then he also could have been the fastest man alive.
He could maybe have been the fastest normal human, but definitely not the fastest metahuman, yeah. But there's a whole host of like examples of that. So he gets super speed. Black Canary has a supersonic scream.
Terrible name for a superhero.
Oh, no, she's great. She's amazing. And so she has that. Livewire is a villain with electricity powers after she got electrocuted.
Isn't that a name of a record?
Livewire?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I feel like it's like a metal band record title.
It could be.
I wish we had a producer look on the internet at things for us instead of looking at Archie comics all the time. God, that guy's useless.
There is nothing better than Archie comics. I apologize.
Oh, God.
This guy the worst.
Yeah, so that's our producer. Fellow listeners, he's decided that Archie comics are better than everything else. I'm not reading. I can see the paper. I don't want to read this. Oh, my God.
Okay. Read it and you'll love it.
I am honored to introduce the world's smartest, handsome, most humble supervillain.
do go on.
I was just, yeah, okay. Professor Andrew Hardy, to my dumb podcast editorializing. He has decided upon his own free will to grace us cross-eyed yokels with his magnificence. Professor Hardy exists only to fill the world full of joy and laughter by the slaughtering and destruction of all inferior comic books, trades, and series, so that only the one true, meaningful comic series will remain. And by that he means Archie Comics.
In big letters.
Yeah, that's... Why are you producing this podcast?
Why does this guy kind of seem also like the host from a Survivor show?
The economy isn't great. Evil doings cost quite a pretty penny, and some of us have to do jobs that we're not very happy about. But I am a professional, if nothing else, and so I will produce this terrible, ridiculous podcast talking about comics that are not necessary. But it's okay. Archie will come up whenever necessary.
I hope that that's never.
Betty and Veronica.
Hey, Doc.
The supple bodies of Jughead and Archie.
Yeah.
He's a real heavy breather, huh?
A little bit. I think he ran here, though, as part of it. He was jogging or something.
I only jog to get new issues of Archie comics.
Oh, my God. Okay, so...
Are you aware that Archie is dead now?
I did hear that.
It's not as good as the originals, but it's pretty great.
See, I think maybe, Colin, you and I can probably join forces on this, because I feel like we were about to break through. Like, we were about to learn something amazing, and then Archie. So I think we could actually learn something interesting here. Fun fact is that in the DC universe, most people that have one of these metahuman abilities, they're not like great powers. If Archie existed in the DC universe, he could be a metahuman, and his power is just like having red hair, because there's lots of people like that. There's a comic called Countdown to Infinite Crisis, and in that one they reveal that like 99% of powers are like nuisance level. Like, you might win the Powerball more frequently than other people, or you could like bend spoons with your mind or things like that. But it's a very, very small percentage of metahumans that get like a cool, useful power, like shapeshifting or lightning or anything like that.
Do they all have really just kind of annoying names too?
Well, no, because most of them probably don't even realize that what is happening to them is a superpower as opposed to luck or things like that. So those are like ordinary citizens, like people that just live their lives.
There's just leprechauns just walking around not knowing how lucky they are.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit. Yeah.
Like Archie, for example.
Yeah, he doesn't know how lucky he is that he's somehow still relevant in the modern day.
He is the greatest!
Oh my God.
Can we just cut this guy's mic?
We can fix this in post.
We can fix this in post. Okay.
I will yell and scream.
Oh my God. Oh God. So, at any rate, that's like humans. That's how humans often get powers. Is this metagene? Although it's worth noting that they're very like reluctant to specifically tell you which people have a metagene, because I think it looks a little too close to like the mutant thing in X-Men.
Oh, the whole X-Men thing.
So they just call them metahumans, and like frankly, a lot of metahumans are like, they're like aliens. They're not even like people in the first place. Like Superman is called a metahuman, but he's Kryptonian. His powers come from a different physiology, not because he's got a metagene.
Yeah, but when we think about aliens, we think like giant orby heads and huge eyeballs, not like handsome dudes who can wear glasses or not wear glasses, depending on what they want to do with their lives.
That's true too. Okay, well then here's a good example of an alien with alien powers that doesn't look super handsome.
How about a human with alien powers?
Actually, I can get to that.
Oh my God.
It's funny that you mentioned I can get to that. So, First, the other way around.
Yeah, alien with human powers.
An alien with alien powers, but doesn't look human.
Yeah.
Martian Manhunter.
Which one's that?
He's the Martian Manhunter.
So like the guy with the little ray gun from the Looney Tunes?
No, that's Marvin the Martian.
Oh, right.
This is the Martian Manhunter. So he's a superhero. He's a founding member of the Justice League. He is like a green-skinned big Martian. He has a lot of the similar powers of Superman, like heat vision and strength and invulnerability, but he can also shapeshift, and he can like phase through walls and turn invisible, and he's telepathic as well.
So if he can shapeshift, he can just be a handsome dude then too?
He can, but he often isn't.
Why wouldn't you just go there?
I think he likes being Martian. He's the last of his race, so I think he likes staying in his Martian form because he's being truer to his roots. I think
it'd be a really good idea if he just used his powers to blend in, or else he might not last long, you know?
He does blend in. He, as Detective John Jones of the Gotham City Police Department. So that's totally a thing. So then the other side of that.
Oh my God.
Yeah, there was a bit in the 90s where basically this like alien kind of invasion virus gives a bunch of humans powers. So most of them are like totally forgettable. They never made it. Like they didn't become popular. So that like they kind of went out of publication, but they got, I guess, alien powers, you could call it. And they were regular people to start with. So that's an example of that. And we haven't even touched on the fact that there's a whole ton of people that are like technically a different quote unquote species of human. They're called the Homo Magi, and they're magic users. There's a...
Okay, I thought this was about comic books, not Harry Potter. I don't know if I can do this.
You know what? Just hold on. Just bear with me.
Okay.
Because it's all about magic. But magic in like the channeling, like the energies that like hold the universe together.
I'm not going to a yoga retreat with you. This isn't happening.
What?
Let's get back.
I bought the passes. That's a non-refundable deposit.
Did you get a
You're coming to the yoga retreat.
God, I hate Groupon.
Yeah. Well, you know. Do you know who might be there? I'm going to name drop a superhero.
Oh, God.
Yeah. John Constantine.
Right. Yeah, totally. That guy.
Made quasi famous by the middling success of 2003's Constantine starring Keanu Reeves.
Oh, goodness.
But it's much better in the comics than he ever was in film.
The whole suit and wing thing, right?
Well, he doesn't have wings, but yeah, you're thinking of the poster.
Yeah.
But yeah, John Constantine is a magic user, so he can like channel arcane forces, but he's part of the Homo Magi, so there's like something about him, I guess you could say genetically, that like allows him to channel things. And we know it's genetic because
somebody
Zatanna, another magic user, and like his sort of romantic interest is the daughter of John Zatara, a magic user who appears in Action Comics #1 alongside the first appearance of Superman. So everything comes back together eventually.
So here, let's look at this in terms of history.
Sure.
In our our culture and society as Westerners. At one point, Superman had a 1 in 2 chance of being the guy that got left behind in that comic.
Right. Like he might not have been popular.
Yeah. Like what if Superman wasn't the popular guy? Like if he wasn't the handsome dude of the 2 handsome dudes.
Well, actually, initially he wasn't the handsome dude. There's a very little known story that was written by one of Superman's co-creators. It was called Reign of the Superman. And Superman was like a bald genius with like telepathic powers, and he was a villain.
Isn't he the guy in the wheelchair in X-Men?
I mean, yeah, kind of like Professor X if Professor X was evil. So like that was the original concept, and then the other co-creator came in and said like, what if we made him more of like a hero and like a strongman, and we changed everything about his story and powers, and they came up with what they pitched as like Moses in space, because he's a baby sent away by his dying world, and to bring kind of hope and lead humanity or whatever. So the Superman as we know him has obviously progressed since 1938 when he came out, but he's even more different than the very original nugget of what Superman could be.
How old is this guy?
I think 79 this year. I
He's
think that's how
doing-
the math works
He's
out.
doing well.
Yeah. And that is like supervillain, bald, telepathic Superman. They kind of repurposed him later as the Superman of a parallel Earth. So he's not a villain, but he's bald and telepathic. It's
Why wouldn't you just save that for later when he was old?
well, because Superman has no telepathy. That's not one of his powers. He's got lots of superpowers.
Well, I mean,
Super
like,
ventriloquism.
I'm saying like he could eventually develop it though.
Yeah, I mean, with the
And
way
he's
that
gonna get old. And he's gonna get jaded. Like humans are terrible.
do you know what I'm realizing is that every single step along the way, there's like a million more things. So Superman might not get old. This is not necessarily one of his like talked about powers, but
He doesn't have the
in a
balding
couple of
gene?
different comics, it's shown that he basically lives forever. There's one called JLA 1 million, which imagines them in like I think it's the 853rd century, which is when like Action Comics number 1 million would come out if it came out monthly since the first issue. And that Superman had lived in the sun for like thousands of years and still existed. And then there's a different it's not canon, but it's called Superman Red Sun. It's an alternate Earth where Superman is raised in the Soviet Union, and he ends up living basically forever as well. So there's like a couple of different instances that show that Superman might not age. He can die, and he's done it before in comics, but he might not age the way we think that he should or would. That's not really a power people talk about very much with Superman. It's normally about the heat vision or like the super breath or things like that.
He's just walking around bragging like, "Don't worry, I don't age."
Well, I don't think he knows it either, because in like the present time, he's about the age he's meant to be.
Hold on here a second though, because he was a baby once. He's not some baby in a diaper flying around with a cape. He's like a grown ass man.
Yeah, but what I mean is that he's like been on Earth for 30 years.
So how long?
And he's about 30. Like he's not
how
at
long
the
did it
point where
take
he
for
would.
him to get like super old.
I think it would take a very long time. I mean, if he lived for like 15,000 years or whatever.
But you understand like the disconnect there, because if he went from like a baby, he spent 30 years on Earth, boom, he's 30.
Yeah.
We're like 78, 79 years you said in. Like he should be that old now.
Oh, like comics don't run in real time. That would be crazy talk. Because they only come out like monthly. You'd get like every issue a month would go by. There'd be so many gaps. So they're always kind of adjusting and sort of fudging like dates and things like that. If you read the comics, it's weird because in one issue Nixon's the president, and then like the next time you look at it, it's Obama. But they tried basically not to like drop too many names or mention too many specific dates, because they're always sort of fudging the timeline that way.
Okay, well, it's great that we have these like superheroes with superpowers and superness. But like, are they really having everyday craziness that they're constantly dealing with? Or is it unrealistic to think that like a month goes by and Superman's like, oh man, haven't done anything in a while. Good thing I have this job at this newspaper to do.
Right.
I got to go save someone's life real quick. Be right back. Hold tight.
Well, I think part of the thing that solves that problem of like super people getting bored is the fact that there are all of these people out there with the potential to gain powers. There's always like a new villain or a new hero. There's always like new freak accidents, like plane crashes and you get plane powers, or that's not a real thing. I think. I'm pretty sure that's not a real thing.
A plane just went by. This is entirely why Dr. DC is pointing out plane powers.
This was definitely word association because I can see it out the window.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's always a new threat or a new like version of that gaining powers sort of story. So yeah, I mean, they're never going to run out of things to tell or like crises to fix or things like that.
See, and for me, I imagine the in-between comic strips that take place where it's like Clark Kent is at the what's the name of the thing?
The Daily Planet.
The Daily Planet. A terrible name for a newspaper because the thing comes out monthly. But you imagine he's just like super upset at the Xerox machine, just slamming his fist on it because, you know, somebody like Xerox their butt or something. And he's like, why does this thing never work? And that day is his super villain that he has to fight.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's implied that those days are in there. You don't see them very often in the comic books because that's a really hard issue to sell, I think.
Are you kidding me? What a waste of potential. You got like endless amounts of ideas that could take place in this. Like, you know, you kill the Joe, you make some mo, like that kind of thing.
With his powers, all of those problems are over like instantly. Like if the copier's broke, he could literally like fly across the world, build a new one himself, like read a book super fast, learn how to build one himself and fly it back before anyone noticed he was gone.
Why wouldn't you just go down a floor and use the one at the other office shitty
that's
newspaper
because Deborah's down there and she's super stingy about which department gets to use their copier because they're really sort of tightening the purse strings on like paper.
Bureaucracy, I get it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. That's not canon, by the way. If you like go to like look up in DC Comics, Deborah on the like 20th floor of Daily Planet, you won't find her. That's not a thing.
It's because she's a super villain and she's really good at disguising herself as a restroom.
Yeah, she's the restroom that he changes in.
Yeah.
And before he flies out the window.
Yeah. Deborah the restroom.
That's... You know what? I can go to a slightly weird related place with this if we're talking about weird powers and talking about a person as like a physical space.
Let's do it.
Sure. All right. Here's the weirdest kind of power, I think, is just the being that exists. So like some of those are like gods and some of those are like sort of spiritual entities and things like that. But there are a couple of sentient places that are things in the comics. So there's Mogo, who's a sentient planet, and he's a Green Lantern. He's a member of the Green Lantern Corps, but he's a planet. There's Ranks, the sentient city, slightly smaller. He's a member of the Sinestro Corps, which are the opposite of the Green Lanterns. And then there's also a super weird, obscure character. He's a member of the Doom Patrol, but he's called Danny the Street. And he's a street.
Danny Street.
He's a street.
Oh, okay.
He's like a sentient, like alive location. Fun fact: he's transgendered, and the way that he shows this is like if there's, for example, like a motorcycle shop on the street, it will have like frilly curtains. That's the way that he can physically manifest his sexual identity. That's a super weird deep cut to pull up, but that's like a character that exists. And he's not like, he wasn't a person who became a street, he wasn't hit by a street and got street powers or anything like that. Like he just exists.
Is street powers anything like street cred?
I guess they would be, but they don't exist. He's just like
Danny
a thing.
Street cred.
He just like snapped into existence. So that's like another type of power. It's just like
you do realize like we are on like this weird edge with this whole like transgendered street thing. I'm okay with it. I get it. But I'm also kind of like, it's also just a street though.
He's a sentient street though, so it's different from the streets you're used to.
Right. How would I know that I was on a sentient street as opposed to just like an avenue or a boulevard or a street, for example?
Right. I think you know because he'd probably interact with you in some way.
Like as a walk light or a don't walk light?
Yeah. I feel like things like
Main
that.
Street, for example. Very sentient.
Yeah, exactly.
Super sentient.
Yeah, so he's a super weird example of a very common type of power where you just blink into existence and you have powers, but you're the one that made Deborah into a place.
Listen,
so
man,
that's where that came from, and I want to put that squarely back
Deborah
on you.
up though.
I did,
and you were like talking about her little.
Do you know what? Nobody wins when we play the blame game.
Jingle,
I don't
jangle.
like playing the blame game with you.
Well, then don't make Superman fly across the planet, read books, and create copying machines. Just let him use one on the 20th floor and not China.
Okay, well, when they come to me for story ideas, I'll be sure to give you credit for Superman fixes the copier.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That is like the greatest superpower, being able to fix stuff that everyone else is constantly annoyed by. Superman's got to get shit together.
Do you want to know about someone who's great at fixing stuff? This podcast is going to be 17 hours long every episode. So there's a
17 hours of recorded time.
There's a character that has a very
44
brief
minutes
run.
of airtime.
Yeah, that's right. There's some way to like condense time for this so we can like actually upload it. But
speaking of brief runs,
yeah, that's right. So there's a super brief run of this one character called the Carpenter, whose whole thing is that she either like designs like villains' hideouts, or she like repairs their like gizmos or whatever when like if the Riddler builds an elaborate death trap and then Batman ruins it, but he wants to like be economical and use it again on a different hero or something.
he pulls out the business card that says the handyman.
The Carpenter. Yeah. And she comes and she rebuilds the death trap or builds him a slightly new one or a modified one. Needless to say, that's a super short like run for a character, but the Carpenter does exist.
It seems like a pretty
She doesn't
awesome
have powers.
character, though.
She's just skills. That's not a metahuman ability, fixing things. She's just skilled.
You might be surprised by some of the things that get broken in our world and left forever.
Well, that's true too, but that's why we need comic books for the escapism of someone that can fix anything, including elaborate Riddler death traps. But yeah.
Is Batman going to fall for the same one twice, though? Or she just like put different carpet down?
Yeah, and then he wouldn't fall for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'd come in and he'd be like, oh, no, it was parquet floors before.
Ah.
This is totally different.
This is a Persian carpet, I see.
Yeah, he's the world's greatest detective. He'll definitely know that the carpet's
Batman
different.
is not a great detective. He's just a rich kid.
He's the world's
Way
greatest
too much time.
detective. This is a different episode.
Columbo,
This is
Andy
100%. This is its own episode. This argument about how good Batman is like, that's a season of episodes.
Matlock.
Matlock. Yeah, I'm waiting for the Batman Columbo crossover.
You might not have to wait too long because it'll never happen.
Oh my God. Does that kind of answer your question? We've gone all over the place.
Which one? The one where I'm like,
About why people get powers.
how come people keep getting bitten by... We answered that one out of the gates, though. You're like, Spider-Man's not my problem. And I'm like, he's everybody's problem.
Is this... Do you feel like you kind of have a bit more understanding about where powers come from?
I just feel like I have way more questions.
Do you have any powers-related questions?
Yes.
All right.
I'm trying to like bring the words together for this one.
Oh, okay.
This
I see.
This is a good one.
Is this going to be a big one? Yeah.
Oh, like a medium-sized one at least. You know, modest-sized one.
Sure. Yeah.
Average at best. With all of these wonderful powers available to these like superheroes, and then there's all these also wonderful powers available to like supervillains.
Sure.
Why have they not all just teamed up and just like gotten rid of the humans, like the regulars, the normies, or whatever we're called to them?
You're asking why genocide hasn't happened?
Pretty much, yeah.
Right. Okay. That's a super light question for our first episode. I'm glad that we went here.
Yeah. Well, 17 hours in, it's time to ask the hard questions.
Oh wow, we don't shy away from it, do we?
It is starting to get light out still.
Don't give away our location. Don't let people know where we are.
We're on the sun with Batman, apparently. Superman.
Oh my God.
Whatever. Same guy. Different outfit.
For those of you listening at home, just rewind, learn all about Superman living in the sun for 15,000 years, and just forget that Batman was even a part of that sun comic.
How did he not come out wearing shorts and like a bad shirt from Miami? That's what I want to know. He lived on the sun for like 15,000 years. How does he not look like a cocaine dealer from the 80s?
It's going to look really bad, but I think I might be stumped on our first episode.
Yes. That's my superpower.
Sorry, your question, though. Why have they not committed atrocious
mass
genocide?
Yes.
Right. There have been villains to attempt such things, or at least subjugate. Black Adam is the opposite of Shazam. So he has powers imbued by lightning, super strength, lightning powers, all sorts of different things like that. But he rules this country, this fictional nation called Kandak, which is like roughly Iraq.
I have Shazam too. It's on my phone. It's my superpower also.
Yeah. Black Adam just hums the bits that you know, but doesn't tell you what the what the song is, and that's why he's the villain.
He off-key whistles them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So at any rate, like he rules this nation, and he does so because he sees himself as a god and therefore superior. And there have been times where
clearly they're superior if they have these powers that we can.
I'm a little bit concerned that we're witnessing your villain origin story right now. That I'm like giving you the ammunition. And like the justification.
I'm just saying, like, I can boil a hot dog and not burn toast, but there's lots of people who can't.
So you're lunch man.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Lunchman, actually.
Lunchman.
The Lunchman.
Harvey Lunchman.
Harvey Lunchman. That's not a
Harvey Lunchman CPA.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Also, one of my superpowers is super good at math.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chartered professional accountant.
Yeah. Super professional.
That's right. So professional.
I'm a super professional.
So professional that you casually bring up genocide on the first day.
Not in that few words, but yeah, somebody has to, because everyone's thinking about it. There's all these superpowers.
The villains are thinking about it.
Of course they are.
Yeah, not everyone, just the villains.
Okay, but also the superheroes have to clearly be thinking about it if they're constantly fighting these guys off from doing it. So it's on their minds too.
There are heroes and storylines where the heroes are dealing with how far to take their powers, whether or not they should. It's usually not about wiping out humans, but it's usually more about kind of eschewing democracy. Like Injustice, Gods Among Us is a very popular like video game a la Mortal Kombat with DC Comics characters. The sequel just came out, just dropped. I'm not going to do any spoilers for the new one, but the story of the first one is that
genocide.
Well, not a little bit
of genocide. Yeah.
The Joker tricks Superman into killing Lois and destroying Metropolis, and Superman goes nuts and basically becomes a fascist and assumes control of the world. And then over the course of this game, when he realizes that Batman is like tipping the scales and might defeat him, he like basically orders these really aggressive like retaliation strikes against like Gotham and Metropolis and like these cities to show that he's in charge. So like there are storylines and things that deal with that. They're not all necessarily like canon. Like that's not the Superman of the comics. That's its own kind of thing. But they do kind of deal with those things sometimes about like what is the responsibility of having those superpowers? Is it just to save the day, or is it to prevent all crime ever? And that's a thing that like Batman has no powers. Trained very hard, and he fights crime. And there's a comic where he gets Superman's powers and basically like runs himself ragged trying to stop every crime that's happening all over the world. And it kind of shows like how sort of mentally unhinged Batman is, but I think it's a good like illustration of like his heart's not in the wrong place. He's trying to fulfill his mission, and given these like extra tools, he thinks he can do it better or faster or take a bit of a shortcut. But I think the ultimate lesson of all of those kind of stories is that there are no shortcuts in the quote unquote good fight. I think it seldom ends well for the heroes who try it, and the villains who try to take over always lose. That's the thing.
Okay, here's a question, I guess, related to that. Have we seen villains who have become superheroes?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Because, like, the Joker's not making kids laugh.
The Joker is beyond redemption.
Yeah, he's
but,
gone.
I'll give you the example that's most current. Lex Luthor has been a member of the Justice League for well over a year. He
got his coin.
Luthor basically, the Justice League was incapacitated. The world was being invaded by an evil Justice League from a parallel Earth called the Crime Syndicate. And Luthor brought a bunch of villains together to save the day and save the world. And he became a member of the Justice League. And he's actually been, I mean, he's still selfish. He's like a flawed person, but he's been surprisingly heroic. We're all kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop, but so far he's been pretty genuine. So
I like that we're talking about this guy as though he's like an actual person.
Well, that's the only way I talk about them, because they're more real to me than the flesh and blood humans in this room.
Jesus.
What about the dog?
The dog is real, but only because
the dog's a really good desk too.
I'm
that
imagining
paper has not moved.
I'm imagining Crypto the super dog though, so that's part of what's happening there.
Also, can we address the fact that the naming of groups in DC comic books is just not great.
What do you mean?
The Justice League, the Crime Syndicate. Like, come on, guys, get it together. We know what you are with names like that.
Well, yeah, but doesn't that mean that it's a good name?
No,
Because it's
that's
telling
terrible.
you what you're signing up for?
Yeah, but at the same time.
Because the Avengers, that's a name that could easily be villains.
Well, no. Avengers.
It means they've failed in their first attempt, and they have to avenge whatever they messed up the first time. That could easily be villains.
a lot better than the Revengers.
I'll give you that, but only
Barely.
barely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did I answer the question? Did I help you?
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah?
But now I'm also just like, there's only one guy. It's like, it's not a very good turnover rate. Like, the
Oh, you mean
superheroes-
villains to heroes?
They're not doing
Catwoman,
Oh, God, here we go.
Killer Frost.
No one's heard of that one.
Everyone's heard of Killer. Oh my God. Okay, Dr. Caitlin Snow. We're talking about powers here. Dr. Caitlin Snow is a incredible scientist, and they're working on like a cryogenic sort of project. This is not totally like Mr. Freeze, if that's what you're thinking.
Kind of makes me think about Walt Disney.
But basically, she gains not freeze powers per se. She kind of has the power of entropy. She can create like cold and ice, but she needs to absorb energy to do it. So she basically has to like steal the life force from other people in order to power.
How
her
is this
cold
not
powers.
evil?
Oh, she is, but then now she's in the Justice League now. She's turned a corner. She wants to make amends.
Oh, she just takes a little bit of, or is she useless now, or is she just taking little bits of energy, conserving it? And
I
then
think
using it?
it's more that, yeah. Instead of
So
like,
she's not a total succubus then.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I think
alright.
she's weaning herself out of succubusness,
Succubusness.
if I can
Is
use
that a
the
word?
term. It is now.
Do we have a producer to look up this word? Succubusness?
We had a producer, but I'm looking over, and he is elbow deep in Archie comics. He is he's really in there.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Why are his headphones on? Here, hold on a second. Oh my God, he's watching Riverdale.
What episode are you on?
I'm constantly watching all of them.
Oh, he's got it split screened. That's terrifying.
Actually, kind of impressive.
Yeah, a little bit, but that's definitely an issue. You know what you should do if you like watching good superhero television? I would recommend watching The Flash. Just finished season 3. I would watch that. I guarantee you will no longer be dreaming of Archie.
So I should watch season 3 of The Flash?
Well, watch one.
I would always be dreaming of Archie comics.
God, we're really up against the wall here because we have no money to hire a different producer.
We really don't.
And he's got no money to do anything but produce a podcast that he hates.
You're all doomed.
That's such like a morbid laugh because he's as trapped as we are.
So alone.
Yeah, there we go.
And crying.
Yeah.
Talk about the crime syndicate, am I right?
Right? Yeah, that's the most intro level tutorial I could give on superpowers. I don't know that I could make it. I'm worried that everything I say will lead to a million other things I could say.
You mean if you say something, then there's more questions around what you've just said?
Oh, yeah.
That's called everyday life.
Well, that's true, too.
That's my superpower is a million questions.
You do have incredible curiosity.
Yeah, like a small child or a squirrel.
Yeah. Colin Curiosity. We can call you that.
I already have a superhero name, though.
Do you?
Like my regular name has like I've got like a C at the first and then a C at the last.
Oh, like an alliterative name.
Yeah.
Now, I don't want to sound like I'm coming down too hard on you, but that's like a Marvel thing.
Oh
And you know what? You introduced me. You know what my name is. You know, I'm Dr. DC. We just talked about DC Comics. We got this like Archie guy over here, and you keep bringing up Marvel. It's I'm not trying to be, I don't want to be the guy that like kind of gets down on these things, but like it's a little bit frustrating that we keep forgetting who I am and what I stand for.
Mr. Archie, aren't you?
No, not Mr. Archie.
Dr. Archie.
No, oh my God. No. We can fix this in post, right?
Killer Archie.
Oh my God.
Super evil Archie.
Professor Archie.
Super evil Archie. That'd be amazing.
This is about to be the most frustrating endeavor of my life, but I will teach you both about DC Comics. This is going to happen.
La 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 la. I'm not listening.
Of course you're not.
He's still split screening Riverdale, so
Oh, Jughead.
it's not untrue. I do enjoy a good cheeseburger.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Well, I'll end on this note. If you enjoy a good cheeseburger, hop on over to the DC universe to Big Belly Burger, the official burger joint of all in-canon DC stories. But yeah, I mean, like, as far as the powers thing goes, I think I've given as cursory a thing as I can. I think anything else, we're going to be like deep diving.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I can feel just questions radiating from my knees right now.
Well, that's good news for everyone at home, because if you have questions, then hopefully they will too.
Yeah.
And the great thing about this podcast is we're not just doing one episode as previously planned. We'll, you know what? I give in. We won't just do a one episode podcast. We can do more and to actually take those questions, and I can address other things more in depth. And
Like, who's better, Betty or Veronica?
yeah, Superman or Batman? Classic question.
Jughead or Archie?
Green Arrow or Hawkeye? A battle of DC and Marvel.
Moose or Reggie?
Moose. There's someone named Moose. Oh my God.
Yeah.
You have so much to learn.
He's a football player, I think, isn't he?
That's correct.
Oh, my football player, Cyborg, Victor Stone. I can always bring it back to DC. I think that's the lesson of this episode.
All right, guys. I think that just about does it. If you have any burning questions about the world of DC Comics, you can send it to drdcpodcast@gmail.com or tweet at the doctor himself at DrDC. Some kind of sign off.
That's right. Have a good one.
Superman, Aquaman, all the superheroes. They always fight for what is right. Live with danger and adventure.